Yes, thank you. So welcome to Dr. Karl-Heinz Rauscher's webinar called Symptom-Constellations and Healing Voices. And I am Simone Warstat, and I will ask Karl-Heinz questions about what that means. What are, for example, the first question would be, what are actually symptom constellations in comparison to the classic family constellations?
Well, first of all, I always find it interesting to go back to the roots, to the basic, what is systemic constellation work before becoming symptom constellation. And the one thing which is very important to know if you want to understand a systemic constellation is that all the information about our human relationships, plus all the former events, all the trauma of the past, the information about all this is stored invisibly in the air, like a special Wi-Fi field. It's all around us, but we cannot normally, we don't know it, we don't have access to that. But Bert Hellinger, who was developing this the systemic constellation work, found out that there is a receiver for this kind of information, and this is the human being, him or herself. So we as human beings have the intuitive perception which is necessary to get a hold of this information. But this doesn't just start if we have sit at the coffee table or having a beer together. It needs a certain frame. This frame is called systemic constellation work. And how it works, you have positions in a spatial constellation, positions which form like a system. They are connected somehow, like the family, for example, system of the family. And then you have the father and the mother and on all the other members also represented in this constellation. But this is only the beginning. The real work starts if we have people standing as representatives in this constellation, or me in a online individual session. I will be this representative and step into these positions one after the other, and gather the information out of the knowing field or informational field, how we also call that. And symptom constellation now is a development which goes over a certain level towards new realms of backgrounds. The normal thing is that if you have a problem, there is always an energetic background to that. There is an origin to that. Nothing happens just out of nothing. And the most frequent energetic background of a problem or a disease or a symptom or a problem in a relationship or problems with your children, the most frequent background is unresolved trauma in the family of origin. And then if this is the case, you do like a classic family constellation and try to find this energetic background, and then get somehow, start a healing movement to this. And in symptom constellations, you have that part also, but you also have other backgrounds, other energetic backgrounds, and besides the family of origin. And this is, there are three more. And the second is the present family. This is the family you're founding in this life. So members of the present family are the important love partners, the ones of the past, and of course the one who you have actually right now, or sometimes even the future ones also are sending energies which could cause some symptoms to get alert of something is coming. Get ready for it. But this is also part of the classic constellation, family constellation. You have the family of origin, and then you have the present family. And the two additional ones are now interesting for symptom constellations, because you cover also the two additional backgrounds with symptom constellations. And this is personal trauma. There are two kinds of personal trauma. One personal trauma is the trauma which you experience in this life, like in childhood, youth, or later. And this could, if it's unresolved, it could cause some problems, some actual problems. And some of those traumas we forgot, because they, if they're early childhood, or if they were really severe, you don't even remember them, and they can really still, cause a problem.
And then, will you talk about how to uncover those forgotten ones in a little bit? That would be very
yes, of course we will. I have come to that a little later. I want to first, tell you the fourth one, and the fourth one is also very interesting. It is personal trauma, but not in this life, in a former life. And now I do, like, on a daily basis, I do constellations with former life issues and former life unresolved trauma. And about 30% of my clients show that background. And this is not covered in a classic family constellation, because it has nothing to do with the family. It has to do with what you experienced in a former life. Okay, and how to get back to your question, how do I differentiate? I developed a so-called 4-column test, which I apply in pretty much in the first 5 or 10 minutes of a symptom constellation. So,
how do you do that? That sounds fascinating.
Well, I start always with the client, the position of the client, and with the problem is the second position. And then you have, or the symptom or the disease or whatever it is. And then the third position is a possible message of the problem, possible message of the symptom or the disease. So I have 3, I start with those 3. And then I see what information comes through. And then we see, okay, this is a problem. The message has maybe also an input, something to say, but where does that really come from? It has to be normally. It's one of those 4 different backgrounds, and so the test is simple. Right? Now I just go into the outer side, outer circle of the constellation, and I will always start with the family of origin, and I define a position there, which I say, well, this is your family of origin, and this is not a person. This is, a pool. Everybody, father, mother, all the ancestors in one position, to see whether it reacts and connects to the problem or not. And
can I interrupt you here for a second? When you say to see if it connects, how do you actually exactly tap into that, if it connects or not?
Well,
you feel something in your body.
I step into the position of the family of origin, is the pool of everybody in the family. I go there, and then I see how the family of origin, as this entity, reacts as the representative. And there are 4 possibilities. One is, if there's the right arm goes out and shows a connection. But this is true for me. It could be a little bit different for everybody else who's doing that test. This is not like it's not fixed. But if my right arm goes out towards and shows a connection to the problem, it is father's side. So the real background of the problem is father or his family, like grandparents, great-grandparents, and so on. I know that then. Or it goes left, the left arm goes out, then it's mother's side. And it's always true. It is always true. Then I know it's mother's side. Sometimes both arms go out, so I know the problem has a connection to an origin on both sides. There's one part in the family of the father, and there's one part of the family of the mother or the mother. And if the only one arm goes out, I know father's side, and then I don't have to ask about the mother's side. I don't have to know that. So it's much easier to do the interview about the family if you know, oh, it's father's side. So I don't do the interview, ask about the family at all in the beginning. I just start the system constellation, and then I do this test. And so then the third thing or the fourth thing is, it's a no, like a no, or no, or no, whatever. And this could be different for everybody who's doing this test, but you have different ways to express no. So no means there's no connection. You have to look in the other three things, backgrounds. And then I go to the present family, which could be also a problem. The children are also, your own children are part of the present family. Also the children who do not live, like they're aborted or miscarriage. And I go there, and is there a connection or not? So it's not right or left, so it's connection, yes or no. And then I go to the personal trauma in this life, childhood, youth, or later, which might be connected to the actual problem. And then I see it's a connection or not. Somehow is it connected or not? And sometimes it's there, it's like a little bit connected. There's a little bit here and a little bit there. That means that there is trauma somehow connected to that, personal trauma of this life, but it's not the origin. It's maybe the consequence of whatever is the deeper problem, the deeper origin. And then
how do you choose where to focus in on when you have a little bit here and a little bit there?
Then I know that the real cause is it's not from the personal trauma in this life. I just see and I know, and this is experience. If you have a clear connection, there is a connection, and if it's a clear connection somehow, then I ask, of course, can you tell me what you know about your traumas in this life? Tell me, a list, like make a list and tell me, and then we can work with that.
And you're asking the client that, and not the rep at that point, correct?
No, the client, of course.
Yes.
The representative. Well, I'm always doing this test with me being the representative of because I have the experience of that. This is normally a quick thing. It's a 3 or 4 minutes, and then later on, as the last part of this 4-column test, I define a position somewhere else in the outer circle of the constellation and say, well, this is a former life of yours, which might be connected to the actual problem. So I was so be clear that you don't know, so it might be. And then I go there, and then I see if there's a connection. It's normally it's often aggressive connection. If there's one, it shows. It doesn't matter which side, or no. And then I know. And if there is no connection to those 4 possibilities, which there is a 5th one, but it's not so often. That means this is then something of the professional life on work. You can also have problems at your work, which gives you an ache, stomach ache or headache or depression or whatever. So this is the 5th one. But normally, in most of the cases, I find it in those 4.
And then you also work with this very interesting modality called Healing Voices. Can you tell us more about that?
Yes, after I know where the real energetic background of a problem is, then I work with the constellation work. Step by step, we put spotlights on the scene, and then we try to find out where it's coming from, and then when we have that, when we know enough, when we are conscious about the background and where the real unresolved trauma, the original trauma happened, then in the last phase of the constellation, if I didn't, I didn't succeed in getting a good solution with just knowing and with classical tools of systemic constellation work, I offer to ask shamanic energetic healing powers to start a healing movement in the whole system there. And this is, I discovered that in the last 25 years, and I started to combine this shamanic method with constellation work like 10 years ago. So I'm pretty much skilled how to do this. And well, this is really something new. And there are some other facilitators of constellation work in this world who combine shamanic elements with constellation work. But with this, the way I do it, I think I don't know anybody who is able to do that. So I was in many countries like around the world in workshops presenting that work because it's so special. And what's so special about it is that you can achieve a higher level of healing through those shamanic healing. And it's more than a human being could do. I mean, I'm only a medium for those healing powers. And
could you say what actually happens there when you are ready to use the healing voices? What happens in the process? Are you inviting?
Yeah, it is. You can imagine, and I think that this is the truth, that those healing powers are around us all the time, like in a special Wi-Fi field. They are everywhere all the time, and they are strong, and they can often help us, and they often are willing to do that. So before I start to ask the client and offer that, and so the client has to say yes, otherwise they are not allowed, or they would not work. So they and I of course prepare the client, what is to be expected. Mm-hmm. And what I do is define a position in the constellation when we start that work in the constellation, where I say, okay, this is the position of the healers, and then I step into this position as a representative. Go there, and then from this position, I invite those healing voices. They need an invitation. They cannot just work by themselves. For some reason, they need a human being who is able and willing to be a channel and a medium for them. So I invite them to start healing movements there. And after, when they start to work, then they do that through me. That means I'm not doing this. I'm just following the movements and the energy. So I lend them my body for gestures because it goes through gestures, and I lend them my voice because it goes through sounds. Sometimes there are also sentences or words out of ancient languages, which we don't understand on the brain level today, but we do understand it on the heart level. Mm-hmm. And what they do is they work with, and they heal and work with the souls of those people, those human beings who experienced the initial original trauma. And it's often, far back in the past. Like often here around the world, we have the unresolved traumas of former wars. For example, First World War, Second World War. very often here in Germany, and now also in the United States, for example, and everywhere in Europe, of course. We have still the unresolved trauma of the Second World War and the Holocaust and all the war crimes. So there often it shows that the background of an aggression, of a depression, of autoaggressive disease, or problems in relationships are often the consequence of unresolved trauma way back, like 50, 70, 80 years. But the souls of the ones who experience, death or murder or war crimes, and as the victims, and the ones who were there as perpetrators, their souls are still trapped in this situation, because this is what happens to a soul often in a violent death situation. If you look at a victim. And those souls freeze shortly before they got shot or killed. But they freeze in this situation. But this is a protection measurement of nature. But the disadvantage is that this soul is trapped in the very moment. And it always feels all over again in a trauma-like loop, continuous, the sensations which are there at this second, at this moment, meaning anxiety, meaning pain, meaning torture, meaning horrific situations. And time stops for them. So they still feel it today. Those souls feel it today. And through their soul energy, it is then part of the families of the victims and descendants, and it's also part of the families of the perpetrators.
And would you say, I mean, that's, I think, common knowledge at this point, right? That trauma gets passed down in the lineage, yeah, and also over past lives and more. But how do healing voices actually resolve that freeze?
Yeah, well, they work with the souls of the people who really experience that. Mm-hmm. And the first thing in the constellation, and I saw that so often, it's always like a similar thing they do. First, they address the negative energy, the aggression of the perpetrators. And in this phase, they get really loud and really aggressive. And of course, I have to prepare everybody who's in the room for that, because otherwise, if you would not be prepared, you could get anxious, or you will get anxious or afraid right away, because it's very loud and very aggressive. But everybody's safe, and everybody's safe, and I'm standing for that. But if you have perpetrators and victims in the constellation, you can expect that those healing voices will get, for a while, aggressive and loud. And then they destroy some of the perpetrators, or push it out of the energy of the perpetrators out of the system. Mm. And after that, they work with the souls of the victims. And then they mourn about the victims. So they cry about the victims. And this brings the grief in the system into flow, which is very important, because the grief is somewhere. It was sad, but it was just packed somewhere. And then after that, they get always softer, and sometimes there are melodies involved. And then they work with a client and come near to the client, and they support the client, female or male, whatever, support the client to, in the process of letting go, maybe of rest of burdened energies. And these are very touching minutes. It could be that a Healing Voices session at the end of a constellation takes 10 minutes or 15 minutes, sometimes even 20 minutes, and there is so much going on, so much energy shifted, and it's for the descendant of a perpetrator or descendant of a victim. It is just great to experience that, that the perpetrator energy is leaving the system, and sometimes the perpetrators have to do this too. Some perpetrators, if they can separate from the negative energy, they become human again, and then they are in great regret and crying about their deeds, and then seeing all the victims coming up out of the trauma, the trauma freeze, and connect to each other on eye level, forming a community again, or some of them opening up really to the sky and being very, very have a free link, no aggression, no revenge there. It's and to see that, as the descendants of the victim or the perpetrators, is so healing, because then you don't have to carry all these burdened energies anymore. There is no unresolved trauma. It is solved, and we as human beings could not accomplish that. So, but these shamanic healing powers, wherever they come from, but they are around us all the time, they can do that. And it's very touching, and it's, well, basically wonderful.
Yeah. It goes so deep and so far back. Yes. Yeah, and I know you have a workshop actually coming up with that exact topic. And that workshop is actually on November the 20th and the 21st.
Yeah.
And could you maybe explain what the participants could expect there? What happens there? What is that all about?
It's a 2-day workshop, full 2 days, where we do exactly symptom constellations and healing voices for the issues of the participants. And
so multiple participants can bring their issue?
Yeah, we can. We do normally we do like 6 to 8 constellations in this weekend, and everybody who's there can see how this is done, and plus get healing sensations and healing movements themselves, even if they are not the one who is working on a special issue, because Healing Voices is always working with everybody in the room. So if you are open up and say yes to this energy, even if you're just witnessing a constellation which is done to somebody else, you don't have to, but maybe, and I have many reports of people who experience that in one or the other constellation. With Healing Voices, you have some healing movements or experiences on the body level or your soul level. So you have a lot of many examples how this work works, and what's important, how to do what is important to do this. And if you are not working with constellations yourself, you also have the possibility to have your own issue, possibly, or set up, or you have a deeper sense of what's going on within you, and you have healing sensations and healing experiences through Healing Voices, being in the room for many times during those 2 days.
And could you maybe just give a small array of examples of the topics that could be worked on? I know they are symptom and personal issues, but just to give us some examples. What is
basically everything?
How's it decided to?
Basically everything. Nothing is excluded, and just examples are any disease. Whatever it is, also cancer, heart disease, skin rashes, whatever. Any symptoms, even the doctors don't find any disease, but you have symptoms, you have pain, or you have mental disorder, or you have problems on the soul level, like depression, anxiety, or that you have problems in your profession, not being able to show up with a real ability, with you real skills, not being successful, for example, or and then also like having problems in relationships, or not having a relationship, or and wanting one, like have an unfulfilled wish for a relationship, and all that. But and this is endless. The whatever it is, yeah, we work with that. I never had a case where I said, well, this constellation is not good for this and that, to see that, because it's all energy. We are all energy, and our problems are also energetic. Yeah, well, thank you, Simone, for making this interview.